it's important for us to understand how neuroscience today unveils the path to spiritual awakening. New research that's brand new, that's just come in, is groundbreaking and really reveals the neurological foundations of transcendence, offering a scientific roadmap to deeper meaning, resilience, and profound personal transformation. For millennia, spiritual awakening has been the domain of the mystics, the sages, and the monks. But today, that's all meshing and aligning and connecting with what we call science or neuroscience today. Cutting edge neuroscience today is mapping the very circuitry of transcendence, revealing that our brains are literally wired for spiritual connections, and cultivating this capacity can transform our mental health, our resilience, and our sense of purpose in life. What if depression, for argument's sake, isn't just something negative? What happens if it's a wake-up call? What if healing is not just about getting pharmaceutical solutions that the world is focusing on today, but about activating neural pathways that are already there? And these pathways, this map of consciousness, is something that I'm going to be able to show you exists just like the science has shown us. And when we access it, we become whole. So that sense of connection must start from within. Otherwise, we are just operating from animal instinct, survival mind, whatever you'd like to call it. And operating there is okay in the first half of life. But sooner or later, we need to transcend. We need to grow. We need to fulfill our purpose of why we were created in the first place. And that's the journey. It's the science of finding your spiritual self. Recent breakthroughs in neuroscience are rewriting the script that we have on the meaning of life. And then we show through living a purpose-driven life, through using all your faculties and talents, your IQ and EQ, but then also your CQ or your contemplative intelligence, the highest meta-intelligence there is. We can transcend the problem of being human. Dr. Lisa Miller from the Mind-Body Institute in America at Columbia University spent decades demonstrating that spirituality is not a luxury, but a biological imperative. All her research for all those decades revealed one common theme, that people have something within them, innate, that can be accessed. And she called this the awakened brain, which gets us interested. She said the awakened brain is a constellation of neural networks that, when activated, make us more resilient, creative, and psychologically robust, able to tackle any challenges that life throws at us. Famously, she said, loved, held, guided, and never alone, we are wired to be able to perceive that. And when we do, everything in our world is reordered. So we move in life from order of being a child to disorder, the inevitable falling down. And then we move to reorder, something that we can't see and have to just experience through faith, through believing that there's something higher or better for ourselves. Miller's studies showed that engaging in spiritual life provides significant protection against depression, anxiety, and pretty much everything else. So her research showed that grit, optimism, and resilience are all natural ways neurologically embedded within us to traverse depression, addictions, trauma, pain, and suffering. They buffer against addictions. And perhaps the most remarkable thing of all is the neurochemical pathways associated with depression found that spiritual experiences are intimately connected with our states of depression, deeply pressed down, or happiness and joy, bliss, consciousness and reality. So there are two sides of the same neurological coin. So quietening the mind's chatter at the simplest form is something that we all have to be mindful of, that we all have to practice to become well and grow at our highest level. So quietening the mind is number one, but number two is understanding that the mind has something called your default mode network, DMN. And that default mode network that neuroscience has found for us exists as a baseline of who we are. To exist in the world, we need DMN. And whenever things go badly, when we're stressed, when we're feeling that we need to defend ourselves, our DMN is our base that we return to every time. This interconnected set of brain region, which includes the medial prefrontal cortex and posterior cortex, is responsible for self-referential thinking. So being able to think about thinking. This interconnected set of brain region includes the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cortex, and it's responsible for self-referential thinking, mind wandering, and the constant mental chatter that characterizes our everyday consciousness. So that's your DMN, your default mode network. Knowing that it exists is very, very important for us all. So research published in 2024 and 25 shows that becoming aware of our default mode network and then using spiritual practices such as meditation, contemplation, and mindfulness decrease and manage that neurobiological network. So all the research is the same. Oneness, connectedness, transcendence, feeling unity amongst everybody is our natural state when we can rise above the survival mind. When we lower that chatter, the boundaries between what's inside of us and what's outside in your environment in the world come together. They dissolve and integrate as one, as that unity. So you become part of. Now imagine feeling that you belong in this world and it's part of you and you're part of everything else. As big and marvelous and wondrous as that universe is, if you felt truly, truly connected to the universe, to God, and to yourself, imagine the ecstasy and the bliss, the higher consciousness states that you could stay in and what you could create from that beautiful experience of knowing reality, perhaps for the first time. Reality is kind, it's truthful, and it's always loving, but the mind produces fear, necessarily so. We do have to run from elephants. We've got to run from crouching tigers and hidden dragons. But at some point, we can manage those and go off default and create something extraordinary. Dr. Andrew Newberg is the director of the MRI Research Center in Florida at Atlantic University, and he's scanned hundreds of people during these spiritual practices, ranging from Buddhist meditation to Christian prayer. His research recently featured on the Mel Robbins podcast, and he spoke about the consistent patterns of religious and spiritual traditions that are absolutely everywhere. And all of them help us become authentic. If we shut down the parietal lobe, which gives us that sense of self, what happens then is that the boundaries between the self and the environment are dissolved, and that connection happens. So we become less defensive, less boundaried, and far, far more open to the experience of reality exactly as it is. A hyperactive DMN correlates with anxiety, rumination, psychiatric conditions, definitely including depression and panic disorders, etc., generalized anxiety disorder or GAD. But conversely, long-term meditators exhibit reduced DMN activity, even outside their meditation sessions. So that's just in homeostasis, just living their lives, suggesting that spiritual practice creates lasting changes in brain function. End of story. So the good news is all roads lead to God. You're not doing it wrong. And that's where we've got to get less defensive drop those boundaries and connect with each other once again. Why? Because there are many, many pathways that will lead us to experiencing our highest states. Tons of research on neuroscience and biobehavioral science revealed that neurological foundations of various altered states of consciousness, revealing multiple pathways, can be accessed through various means. And it's meditation and contemplative practice. It's near-death experiences. Nothing like a near-death experience is going to get you kicked out of distraction, of wasting your time and your life. So near-death experiences are definitely one, something I've spent years and years researching myself. And then we've got psychedelic experiences that are fairly new today. And they're definitely, if nothing else, I know there's dangers to them, but they're opening up people's EQ. They're softening that noise of the DMN, and they are opening us up to new experience where we could have been blocked by learned helplessness. In other words, where we could have been blocked by beliefs that we're trapped, that we can't change, that this is my lot in life and it ain't looking good. So those things dissolve with near-death experiences, psychedelics, and spiritual practices, which we could list 100 of today. And even flow states and peak experiences get us where we need to go today. So research shows that flow states, or moments of complete absorption in an activity, can unlock up to 400% more of our creative capacity that's in our frontal lobe. And these experiences share neurobiological similarities with spiritual states, including, well, reduced self-referential thinking and enhanced present moment awareness. So the famous psychologist Rollo May said that just before a professional diver would dive off the board, there'd be a pause, a single pause, and then they would jump. And all that mental rehearsal and everything would come together, body, mind, and soul, come together. And these people in the Olympics would do what was impossible to people who did the same thing or tried the same thing years before. So that's a flow state. It's the pause in between stimulus and response with that low DMN, allowing us to do miraculous and wonderful things. So that's the science. It's not foo-foo. It's not just pink cloud thinking at all. A spiritual awakening is very much part of the human process. So it's not just the default mode network or the DMN that, when quieted, enables us to transcend these experiences, but there's the salience network, which kind of helps us develop or identify what's meaningful and worthy of attention. And then there's also the executive control network, which maintains awareness and integration of spiritual insights. So there's a triple network of transformation here that we can activate. And that's science that we can use to grow and take ourselves to a new level, which is definitely something that is happening for each and every one of us around the world. Never have we had so much information. Never have the boundaries to growth and purpose-driven life been lower, where everybody now has access to information, education, at varying levels, of course. But never have we had such a shift of consciousness and human capability as we have today. So it's a beautiful time. Never mind the shift to connection. It's there. We're getting rid of racism, of bias in terms of gender. We're getting rid of all sorts of different things. Women were just allowed to vote 50 years ago in certain countries in the world. There is a coming together, a connectedness that is natural to the human mind when our defaults, our survival mind, is quieted. So Dr. Newberg also explained that these spiritual states that we can get into are not just experienced in one part of the brain, which is misinformation that you're going to hear sometimes today. It's rather experienced as a multi-biological, multi-sensory, multi-dimensional, and transformative experience. It's experienced through cognition, emotion, and sensory areas. So everything plays a part, and we only access half of ourselves when we're in survival mode. Where's the thrive? Where's the stillness and the calm as a platform to create something beautiful for ourselves, to feel joy and happiness for ourselves, the world, and everyone else? It's simply not there until we access everything that we have. So also we access all our faculties and talents that could be dormant, as Patanjali said all those many, many years ago. So to access these states of body, mind, and soul, contemplative practice, 10 to 20 minutes, 1 to twice a day. Create states of awe and wonder. Go in search of them. Don't just sit there and be distracted and wait for life to come to you. It's not coming to you. You're here to engage, connect, and then reciprocate. We need to develop present moment awareness, which, like Eckhart Tolle, Miller's research shows that one hallmark of the awakened brain is the ability to be fully present. So not distracted, not eating, walking, conversing, not living on animal instincts and sitting there in judgment and distraction about everything. Then fostering connection and love is possibly the most powerful of what Miller found out. And he said that all dimensions of the lived spiritual life, which strengthen and awaken us, is love of thyself and love of thy neighbor. And this is written down in all the sacred texts. Spiritual awakening is not an individual endeavor, but it emerges through genuine human connection. And that's what's beautiful, and that's what's happening today. So history, although it hasn't been great for the human species, has always shown us that it's always the same millennia, after decade, after days, after years, after wars, whatever it's going to be. History will show us that it's always the same. It's a return to love out of fear states that gets us the best of humanity, of our own divinity. There's also the evolutionary perspective that is important. Every single culture in history has taught and practiced spirituality. Don't forget that. It's no accident that those spiritual practices have always been there and are still here today. As we return to our sacred selves or spiritual selves today, watch the mental health crisis start to dissolve, start to return to normal. We took God out of schools pretty fast. We jumped into the hope that medication was going to solve chemicals. We're going to solve all our problems like depression and anxiety that are there to help you grow, connect, and contribute. Who would have thought it is in giving that we receive? So the paradox of a depression that can open you up is not something that you can understand without learning solid spiritual practice. Our brains didn't just stumble into the ability to transcend. They evolved specifically to support these experiences because they conferred. So the way forward is, of course, integrating neurobiological with the spiritual. It is about spiritual intelligence for modern life, grounded in science and what's real. As we face unprecedented challenges that might be climate change to artificial intelligence for many, from what looks like social fragmentation to existential uncertainty, the cultivation of spiritual intelligence, of contemplative intelligence, becomes not just a personally meaningful act, but collectively essential for our future. Regenerative intelligence is how we always return, even though we do terrible things as the human race, generation after generation, war after war. There's always an ethical returning to values, authenticity, and the very best of our imago Dei, of the image of God within us. So our creator, that everybody from Elon Musk to everyone in Hollywood is starting to talk about again, is who we are. We are created in the image of the divine. and our nature is the same. So although we can create terrible things with what we call fear states, we can also create beautiful things when we return to our authentic selves. And beauty will save the world. Beauty, truth, and goodness is all you know on earth and all you need to know, said Keats. So, with an awakened perception, we're more creative, collaborative, ethical, we're more innovative, we're more powerful when we drop this individualism that has gone far beyond culture and history and religious belief. We really are all one, and the science is showing that we won't be happy. Literally, we'll become depressed and anxious until we search for that unity and then pursue it to a level where we can cultivate oneness. It is a universe after all, a universe, one song for everybody. So the science is in, the spirituality is in. This is what Christ taught. And, do not be conformed to the world that you see. That's that first half of life, that complete neurobiological set of networks and patterns that you think is reality, except it's just your perception. And it's the perception that you can bear at that time when you can't do anything but really survive as a little baby in the world. So it was necessary suffering. But there comes a time when we transcend, and that awakened brain is right there. It's inside. You don't need to go looking for it anywhere. Not south, not north, not east or west. It's within. So we quiet the survival mind and we awaken the contemplative, intuitive, creative beauty of everything that we are. Love, goodness, patience, resilience, endurance, and growth and creativity like you just cannot imagine. Look within and then use the world or the universe to look without and see what's going on. So a simple exercise, not to get too out there, is look at the tiny speck of sand, that one grain of sand that is planet Earth, that blue marble that spins around and around. There's nothing like it out there. And the size and expanse of the universe is something that we should look into once in a while, lest we forget that we're flying upside down on a blue marble. So all those planets, all those galaxies, do you think they're there for nothing? The same thing is happening out there that's happening within you. What will those galaxies be used for? There's a galaxy out there for every person that has ever lived so far. An entire galaxy. So what are we going to do with what is out there? Use the world as a mirror to see what it's like within. That's what your mind's like. And when we access more knowledge, more reality, we grasp something called truth. And that truth will set you free. So false evidence appearing real or fear states like depression, anxiety, personality or mask disorders. The persona means mask. Taking those off, taking the limits off, can lead us to something absolutely beautiful within. And then that's how we will see God, self, and other. So it's an experience that happens from the inside out.